New normal big life.
Breaking news: on July 10th, 2025, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin dropped a bombshell. Geoengineering is happening in American skies. Those crisscross patterns you've seen from airplanes, they're not just contrails, they're real, and they're altering our weather. Your health concerns? Valid. Those strange weather events? Possibly manufactured. What was once dismissed as a conspiracy theory is now an undeniable fact. But who's behind it and why? The truth about the weather manipulation is unfolding, and it's time to pay attention. Join me as we dive into the startling reality of geoengineering and what it means for you, your family, and the planet. The skies are changing. Don't miss the story that's rewriting what we thought we knew about the weather. Hi, friends. Welcome to the New Normal Big Life podcast. We bring you natural news and stories about nature that we hope will inspire you to get outside and adventure, along with a step-by-step plan to help you practice what you've learned and create your own new normal and live the biggest life you can dream. I'm your host, Antoinette Lee, the Wellness Warrior, and today we're talking about geoengineering. It's real and it's happening over American skies. Guess what, Mom? Your son isn't crazy. Your sister hasn't gone around the bend, and your health system symptoms after seeing airlines spray a crisscross pattern in the sky are real. Geoengineering has officially gone from a so-called conspiracy theory to a frightening fact. Weather is being engineered, and devastating weather anomalies might be manufactured events. According to the EPA, geoengineering encompasses a broad range of activities, including those that intentionally attempt to cool the earth or remove certain gases from the atmosphere. Gases that trap heat in the atmosphere are often referred to as greenhouse gases, which include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. Geoengineering includes carbon dioxide removal, or CDR, through methods such as direct air capture and storage, ocean iron fertilization, and ocean alkalinity enhancement. Marine cloud brightening, or MCB, includes adding particles such as sea spray to lower the atmosphere near the surface to increase the reflectivity of clouds over the ocean. Other techniques such as cirrus cloud thinning, or CCT, or space-based methods have been far less researched due to uncertainty in the processes, high potential costs, and they aren't easily accomplished. A subset of geoengineering activities intends to cool the Earth by intentionally modifying the amount of sunlight reaching Earth's surface. These activities are referred to as solar geoengineering, or solar radiation modification, SRM. Most proposed solar radiation modification techniques involve adding material to the atmosphere to increase the amount of incoming sunlight reflected back to space. While some of these approaches are currently being studied, the EPA shockingly admits that not enough information exists to fully understand the viability, risks, and benefits of each approach. The EPA report goes on to describe the types of solar engineering techniques in use, like stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI. SAI is adding small reflective particles to the upper atmosphere, or the stratosphere, to reflect incoming light. Sulfur dioxide, or SO2, one of the types of chemicals used for stratospheric aerosol injection, can chemically react in the stratosphere to form reflective sulfate aerosols. Although an industrialized population creates sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere, the intentional injection of this chemical comes with huge risks, according to the EPA and others. According to the American Lung Association, the effects of sulfur dioxide on human lungs are many. So, what are the effects of sulfur dioxide? Sulfur dioxide causes a range of harmful effects on the lungs, such as wheezing, shortness of breath, heart arrhythmia, chest tightness, and other problems, especially during exercise or physical activity. Rapid breathing during exercise and working outdoors helps sulfur dioxide reach the lower respiratory tract, as does breathing through your mouth. So long-term exposure at high levels increases respiratory symptoms and reduces the ability of the lungs to function. The long-term impact on athletes, children, and folks who work outdoors is startling. Short exposures to peak levels of sulfur dioxide in the air can make it difficult for children, seniors, and people with asthma to breathe when they're active outdoors. Increased risks of hospital admissions or emergency room visits, especially among children, seniors, and people with asthma. In my Midwestern community, where there's a high population of seniors, you can hear EMS sirens one after another as particulate matter from geoengineering airplane spraying falls to the ground. So what are the potential known impacts of geoengineering? Well, the government admits that the purpose of solar geoengineering is to cool the Earth by reflecting more sunlight back to space. However, depending on the approach used, there are some unintended health and environmental consequences that require a careful evaluation. Yet the EPA admits that scientists aren't entirely sure about the risks and benefits of solar geoengineering because the data and tools they use to study it have some gaps and uncertainties. Quote, there isn't enough information available to fully understand the unintended consequences of solar engineering, according to the EPA in July 2025. So why an admission of geoengineering matters to you? The potential health and environmental impacts of solar engineering are staggering. They include effects on the ozone layer. Adding particles to the stratosphere or the upper atmosphere could lead to stratospheric ozone layer depletion. However, lower temperatures from reduced sunlight may also reduce ozone at ground level and its negative health impacts. Reduced ozone levels as a result of ozone depletion mean less protection from the sun's rays and more exposure to UVB radiation at the Earth's surface. Ozone layer depletion increases the amount of UVB that reaches the Earth's surface, and laboratory and epidemiological or disease control studies demonstrate that UVB causes non-melanoma skin cancer and plays a significant role in malignant melanoma development. Of the human health effects from sun exposure, melanoma is the most lethal, causing nearly 7,000 deaths annually in the United States. In addition, UVB is linked to the development of cataracts, a clouding of the eye lens. So what is the geoengineering effect on plants? Well, UVB radiation affects the physiological and developmental processes of plants. Indirect changes caused by UVB, such as changes in plant form, how nutrients are distributed within the plant, timing of developmental phases, and secondary plant metabolism, may be more important than the damaging effects of UVB. Farmers and gardeners are sounding the alarm. Bees are vanishing. Last summer, I watched bees repeatedly crash into my cabin and drop dead, a haunting sign of trouble. Experts warn that this decline threatens our food supply. Bees pollinate 70% of the world's crops, says Dave Goulson, a bee biologist. Without them, fruits, vegetables, and nuts could disappear, spiking prices and starvation risk. Possible culprits? Pesticides, habitat loss, even geoengineering, where chemicals like silver dioxide used to boost rain may poison bees. Northern Hemisphere crop yields are already shaky, with farmers reporting lower harvests. Backyard growers can fight back by planting bee-friendly flowers and ditching chemicals. Every garden counts, insists beekeeper Sarah Ellis. Let's act now. Our plates and planet depend on it. Bees equal food security. So imagine opening your fridge to find it empty. No apples, no almonds, no zucchini. That's the future we're barreling toward as bee populations plummet. Farmers, scientists, and backyard growers like me are witnessing a chilling trend. Last spring, I stood in my vegetable garden stunned as bees smashed into my cabin's wall until they died. It's not just my yard. Bees are disappearing globally. and it's a 5-alarm fire for humanity and the earth. After this short break, we'll examine the significance of declining bee populations on your food and so much more. World events are constantly teaching everyone some very painful lessons. Without warning, everything we take for granted can suddenly fail. And if you're not prepared in advance, you really don't have a chance. The fact is, the modern world runs on a just-in-time supply schedule. Even the biggest grocery stores can carry only enough food for a few days' worth of normal shopping. So when disaster strikes and chaos ensues at your local stores, the odds are simply against you. If you don't have emergency food and gear stockpiled in advance, you will probably suffer. My partner Ready Hour is here to help you ahead of time. Ready Hour has a long history of providing calorie-rich, reliable, and delicious nourishment for life's unexpected situations, and critical emergency gear too. They're part of a family of companies that have served millions of people like you for decades. My family and I use Ready Hour products for camping, mountaineering, and disaster preparedness for 5 years now. They're not just reliable, they're also your affordable option too. Long-term survival food shouldn't break the bank. That's why they have great sales and payment options for you. It's your bridge to safety and survival when things just aren't normal anymore. So make your next decision your smartest decision. Be ready for tomorrow, today. Trust Ready Hour. Ready to shop? Use my affiliate link in the show description. Welcome back to the show where we're talking about why you should care about declining bee populations. So, why should you care? Bees aren't just a buzzing annoyance. They're the backbone of our food system. Like I said, bees pollinate 70% of the world's crop, explains Dr. Dave Goulson, a renowned bee biologist from the University of Sussex. Goulson said, without them, staples like berries, tomatoes, and coffee could vanish. Picture grocery shelves bare, prices soaring, and diets shrinking to rice and corn. Beyond food, bees keep ecosystems alive, supporting wild plants that sustain wildlife. Lose them, and the dominoes fall hard. Bees are vital in the plant and animal ecosystem. Acting as nature's most efficient pollinators, they support these systems in several key ways, creating a ripple effect that sustains biodiversity and life as we know it. For plants, bees are the primary movers of pollen, the powdery substance that fertilizes flowers. As they buzz from bloom to bloom, collecting nectar and pollen for food, they transfer pollen grains from a flower's male parts, the anthers, to its female parts, the stigma. This process, called pollination, enables plants to produce seeds, fruits, and new generations. Without bees, many plants like apples, almonds, and wildflowers would fail to reproduce, leading to barren landscapes and shrinking plant diversity. Animals depend on this plant bounty. Herbivores from deer to rabbits rely on bee-pollinated vegetation for nourishment. Fruits and seeds feed birds, bears, and small mammals, while nectar-rich flowers support other pollinators like butterflies. A single beehive can sustain a whole food web, says beekeeper Sarah Ellis. Predators in turn thrive on these plant eaters, linking bees to the survival of foxes, hawks, and beyond. Wetlands and forests stabilized by bee-pollinated plants shelter countless species. Bees also boost ecosystem resilience. Thanks to their pollination, diverse plant life prevents soil erosion, stores carbon, and regulates water cycles. The benefits that cascade to animals and humans alike. Lose bees, and this intricate web unravels. Plants die off, humans and animals starve, and habitats collapse. Bees are small, but they hold up a giant world. So what's killing the bees? Pesticides and habitat loss are old news, but a darker theory is buzzing: geoengineered weather. The EPA, Dane Wigington, founder of geoengineeringwatch.org, and others claim cloud seeding and geoengineering disperses toxic metals like silver iodide, decimating bee populations and disrupting their navigation. Cloud seeding, spraying chemicals to boost rain or snow, has government backing. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says, quote, it's a tool for water management, but critics argue it's poisoning bees. In a 2023 interview, a Colorado official boasted, we seed clouds to ensure snow for our ski industry. Yet beekeepers like Steve Ellis report, after seeding, my hives show chemical traces. Are bees dying because they sense a threat we're ignoring? They're dropping like flies, some say. They know something we don't. Pesticides like neonicotinoids, which linger in pollen, are prime suspects. Habitat loss from sprawling farms and cities starve them. This weather modification tactic sprays chemicals like silver iodide, aluminum, barium, strontium, and more into clouds to coax rain. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has written tons about this. Some theorize these heavy metal poisons bees disrupting their navigation and survival. You can check out all of these citations in the show description. So science hasn't nailed it down, but the coincidence is eerie. Bee survival in the Northern Hemisphere is in danger. In 2025, farmers report patchy yields. Almonds are down 15% and apples are erratic. Backyard growers like me notice fewer pollinated flowers, meaning smaller harvests. Without bees, hand pollination isn't scalable. Food scarcity looms. Ecosystems unravel too, with fewer wildflowers, which means less biodiversity, threatening everything from birds to bears. But there's hope. Backyard grows can turn the tide. Plant bee magnets like lavender, sunflower, and clover, diverse blooms that feed them year-round. However, don't create a worse problem by choosing non-native pollinators. Search for a list of pollinator-attracting plants that are native to your area. Planting a non-native plant species could cause havoc to your ecosystem. Non-native plants tend to drop their seeds before native plants. This allows the non-native plant to become more established in siphoning light, nutrients, and water, and other resources from the native plants. This process is how a non-native plant becomes an invasive species or an invasive plant. So choose your plants carefully. Make sure that you're skipping pesticides, go organic. Every garden counts, says beekeeper Sarah Ellis, who's nursed hives back to health with flower-rich yards. Water sources and shade help your bees survive too. It's a small step, but if we all pitch in, we can save the bees and ourselves. Let's buzz into action. The future's too sweet to lose. So let's talk about geoengineering's effects on aquatic ecosystems. Phytoplankton form the foundation of aquatic food. Phytoplankton productivity is limited to the upper layer of the water column where there's sufficient sunlight to support productivity. Exposure to solar UVB radiation is shown to affect phytoplankton, resulting in reduced survival rates for these organisms. Scientists have demonstrated a direct reduction in phytoplankton production due to ozone depletion related increases in UVB. UVB radiation is found to cause damage to the early developmental stages of fish, shrimp, crab, amphibians, and other aquatic animals. The most severe effects are decreased reproduction activity or capacity and impaired larval development. Small increases in UVB exposure could result in population reductions for small aquatic organisms, which has negative implications for the whole aquatic food chain. Could geoengineering be the cause of fewer fish rather than overfishing? Who knows? Ecosystem health and crop yields. Adding sulfur to the atmosphere increases the risk of acid rain, deposits of sulfur on the surface, and worsens soil acidity, which could negatively impact food production. Decreased sunlight could also negatively impact the ecosystem and agricultural productivity. Acid rain is any form of precipitation with acidic components such as sulfuric or nitric acid that falls to the ground from the atmosphere in wet or dry forms. This can include rain, snow, fog, hail, or even dust that's acidic. According to Oklahoma State University's Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources, acidic soil is devastating to farms and backyard growers. Toxic levels of aluminum harm the crop by what's called root pruning. Root pruning occurs when a small amount of aluminum in the soil over what is normal causes the roots of most plants to either deteriorate or stop growing. As a result, the plants are unable to absorb water and nutrients normally. They'll appear stunted and exhibit nutrient deficiency symptoms, especially phosphorus deficiency. The final effect is either complete crop failure or significant yield loss. Often the field will appear to be under greater stress from pests, such as weeds, because of the poor condition of the crop. This phenomenon puts food production at risk. Adding particles to the stratosphere or upper atmosphere can alter hydrological cycles, leading to changes in the amount of rainfall and drought in specific regions. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, the hydrologic cycle involves the continuous circulation of water in the Earth's atmosphere system. At its core, the water cycle is the motion of the water from the ground to the atmosphere and back again. Of the many processes involved in the hydrologic cycle, the most important are evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, and runoff. The threat to food production as a result of geoengineering isn't scary enough for you, huh? In this case, the health risks to humans and animals are equally alarming. Some particles in the stratosphere or upper atmosphere eventually come down to Earth's surface, where they can contribute to diverse or adverse health implications. Geoengineered particulate matters impact your health. The size of particles, or particulate matter, PM for short, is directly linked to their potential for causing health problems, says the EPA. Small particles, less than 10 micrometers in diameter, pose the most significant problems because they get deep into your lungs, and some may even get into your bloodstream. Exposure to such particles can affect both your lungs and your heart. Numerous scientific studies have linked particle pollution exposure to a variety of problems, including premature death in people with heart or lung disease, non-fatal heart attacks, irregular heartbeat, aggravated asthma, decreased lung function, increased respiratory symptoms such as irritation of the airways, coughing, or difficulty breathing. People with heart or lung diseases, children, seniors, people of color, and low-income households are the most likely to be affected by particle pollution exposure, either because they're more sensitive or may have higher exposures. For real-time information on your location's air quality, you can go to airnow.gov, a website operated by the EPA and various federal, U.S. state, and international partners like Canada and Mexico. AirNow can help you monitor air quality near you and protect yourself and your family from elevated levels of particulate matter. Just enter your zip code and the website provides your current air quality. So let's talk about the environmental effects of geoengineered particulate matter. Fine particles, PM2.5, are the leading cause of reduced visibility or haze in parts of the United States, including many of the treasured national parks and wilderness areas. It's why places in the Mountain West, like northern Colorado, the Front Range it's called, with its spectacular views of Rocky Mountain National Park's foothills, where I used to live, and had a dramatic change in their skyline. Before 2020, the Front Range boasted skies as blue as the Hamm's beer can, whose tagline is "First brewed in 1865 in Minnesota, the land of sky blue waters." Colorado's Front Range, like Minnesota, California, and North Carolina, for example, bragged about its Carolina blue skies and bluebird days, but no more. Before 2020, Colorado's Front Range was noted for its more than 300 days of sunshine each year. Today, You can rarely see the foothills, and the hazy skies look more like London's fog. In a 2023 interview, a Colorado official boasted, "We seed clouds to ensure snow for our ski industry." But are entities taking a geoengineering gamble with humanity and the planet? Here's geoengineering's environmental damage. Particles can be carried over long distances by wind and then settle on the ground or in the water. Depending on their chemical composition, the effects of this settling might include making lakes and streams more acidic, changing the nutrient balance in coastal waters and large river basins, depleting the nutrients in soil, damaging sensitive forests and farm crops, affecting the diversity of ecosystems, contributing to acid rain effects. And you don't have to take my word for it. All of the citations, everything that I'm quoting and listing, will be in the citation lists in the show description. Geoengineering's damage to property and materials is pretty incredible. Particulate matter can stain and damage stone and other materials, including your home, your office, and culturally important objects such as statues and monuments. Some of these effects are related to the acid rain effects on materials, and some of them are natural acid rain or acid rain produced just from industrial life, and others are acid rain produced by geoengineering. So why does geoengineered particulate matters impact your health? Let's unpack what the health effects are you might experience as a result of particulate exposure and simple measures you can take to reduce your risk. Particulate exposure is a mixture of microscopic solids and liquid droplets suspended in air. This pollution, also known as particulate matter, is made up of several components, including gases such as nitrates and sulfates, organic chemicals, metals, soils, or dust particles, and allergens such as fragments of pollen or mold spores. Small particles less than 10 micrometers in diameter pose the most significant problems. The size of particles is directly linked to their potential for causing health problems. Exposure to such particles can affect both your lungs and your heart. Larger particles are less concerning, although they can irritate your eyes, nose, and throat. Small particles of concern, such as those found in wildfire smoke and geoengineering haze, which are 2.5 micrometers in diameter or less, and the coarse particles, such as those found in windblown dust, which have diameters of 2.5 to 10 micrometers, are also a concern. So who is at risk from geoengineered particulate matter? Well, people with heart or lung disease, seniors, and children are considered at greater risk for particulate matter exposure, especially when they're physically active. Exercise, working outdoors, and other physical activities cause people to breathe faster and more deeply, and to take more particles into their lungs. People with heart or lung disease, such as coronary artery disease, congestive heart failure, and asthma, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, are at an increased risk because particles can aggravate these diseases. People with diabetes may also be at an increased risk, possibly because they're more likely to have an underlying heart disease. Seniors are at an increased risk, possibly because they have undiagnosed heart or lung disease or diabetes. Many studies show that when particulate matter levels are higher, seniors are more likely to be hospitalized, and some may die of aggravated heart or lung disease. Children are likely at increased risk for several reasons. Their lungs are still developing. They spend more time at high activity levels, and they are more likely to have asthma or acute respiratory diseases, which can be aggravated when particulate levels are high. So how does geoengineered particulate matters affect your health in the long and short term? Particulate matter exposure can lead to a variety of health effects. For example, numerous studies link particulate levels to increased hospital admissions and emergency room visits, and even to death from heart or lung disease. Both long-term and short-term particulate matter exposures are linked to health problems. Long-term exposure, such as that experienced by people living for many years with high particulate matter levels, is associated with problems such as reduced lung function, the development of chronic bronchitis, and even premature death. Short-term exposure to high particulate matter levels for hours or days can aggravate lung disease, causing asthma attacks and acute bronchitis. It may also increase susceptibility to respiratory infections. For people with heart disease, short-term exposures are linked to heart attacks, arrhythmias, or even an irregular heartbeat. So geoengineered particulate matter exposures can have symptoms, but sometimes you may not feel the symptoms. Even if you're healthy, you may experience temporary symptoms such as irritation of the eyes, nose, and throat, coughing, phlegm, chest tightness, and shortness of breath. If you have lung disease, you may not be able to breathe as deeply or vigorously as normal, and you may experience coughing, chest discomfort, wheezing, shortness of breath, and unusual fatigue. If you have any of these symptoms, reduce your exposure to particulate matter and follow your doctor's advice. Contact your doctor if symptoms persist or worsen. If you have asthma, carefully follow your asthma management plan when particulate matter levels are high. If you have heart disease, particulate matter exposure can cause serious problems in a short period, even heart attacks, with no warning signs. So don't assume that you're safe just because you don't have any symptoms. Symptoms such as chest pain or tightness, palpitations, shortness of breath, or unusual fatigue may indicate a serious problem. If you have any of these symptoms, follow your doctor's advice. So here's how to protect yourself from geoengineered particulate matter. Your chances of being affected by particulate matter increase the more strenuous the activity and the longer you're active outdoors. If your activity involves prolonged or heavy exertion, reduce your activity time or substitute another activity that involves less exertion. Go for a walk instead of a jog, for example. Plan outdoor activities for days when particulate levels are lower, and use an indoor air purifier with a HEPA filter. We have Shark air purifiers with HEPA filters in every major room in our home. So here's the EPA's legal authorities controlling solar engineering. Here's where things get really scary. The EPA says it's doing everything within its authority to identify and track any potential solar geoengineering or solar radiation modification activities within the United States. For example, on April 15, 2025, EPA's Office of Air Radiation, OAR, sent a request to the startup company called Make Sunsets, which claims to be geoengineering the planet by releasing balloons filled with sulfur dioxide and selling cooling credits. As of May 2025, Make Sunsets reported releasing about 0.1 tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. Although the amount of sulfur dioxide is extraordinarily low, the EPA extraordinarily low according to what Make Sunsets says it's releasing, the EPA is conducting an internal review of current authorities that could be used to stop this activity, particularly if it escalates significantly. But clearly, Make Sunsets isn't the only company geoengineering the weather. Alternatively, the EPA is studying whether new authorities would be needed from Congress, or whether another agency should take the lead in regulating and enforcing against such activities. In addition, any persons planning to engage in solar geoengineering activities must result in the disposition of material that may result in the disposition of material into ocean waters or into sea ice may need to submit a permit. But the EPA, under the Marine Protection Research and Sanctuaries Act, the MPRSA, based on multiple factors such as the location and type of disposition, can approve your permit. But as of July 2025, the EPA has issued only one MPRSA permit for a marine carbon dioxide removal research project. These approaches have the potential to impact marine environments, according to the EPA. So what does the US government do to track geoengineering? Well, Congress hasn't passed any laws solely related to solar geoengineering, though several laws are relevant. In other words, geoengineering may or may not be legal. For example, under the authority of the Weather Modification Act, the WMRA of 1972, all persons intending to engage in weather modification activities in the United States are required to provide a report to NOAA at least 10 days prior to undertaking the activity. However, only one permit is on file since 1972. Under Part 908.3 of Title 15 of the Code Federal Regulations, reporting requirements for weather modification encompass solar geoengineering activities, modifying the solar radiation exchange of the Earth or clouds through the release of gases, dust, liquids, or aerosols into the atmosphere. While NOAA doesn't regulate weather modification activities, it does track them through the WMRA reporting requirements. A public database of NOAA weather modification reports can be viewed using the link in the show description. In 2022, Congress directed the Office of Science and Technology Policy, with support from NOAA and in coordination with the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy, to develop a 5-year federal research plan for solar and other rapid climate interventions. The resulting 2023 Biden administration report to Congress concluded that the development of a federal research program on solar geoengineering would help to better inform decisions on the potential risks and benefits and help prepare for possible deployment by other public or private actors. To be clear, geoengineering is happening, but in 2023, our government decided that it should begin studying the impact of solar geoengineering. The report also emphasized that any solar geoengineering research program should encompass both the scientific dimensions of solar geoengineering as well as the potential impacts on human health and well-being, ecosystems, and international engagement. Our neighbors may not like the fact that we're geoengineering American skies. Talk about putting the cart before the horse. Current federal research is designed to improve the ability to observe current conditions in the atmosphere and the understanding of the potential physical impacts of solar geoengineering. The U.S. government is not engaged in any form of outdoor testing, small-scale experiments designed to study injection technologies, or large-scale development. The intentional use of solar geoengineering to cool the Earth, according to the EPA. Current federal research activities should not be interpreted as endorsement of the implementation of solar geoengineering, the EPA continued. In other words, although EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin and the EPA's website confirms what geoengineering is, that it's happening in the skies over the U.S., and that there are known health and environmental hazards to cloud seeding in geoengineering, it's still unclear whether governmental, commercial, and possibly foreign entities are rapidly manipulating the weather over America daily. The EPA's pathetic attempt to address the constant geoengineering airplane spray in our skies was to scapegoat a Silicon Valley startup company called Make Sunsets. But Make Sunsets activities are very small scale. It also doesn't account for the hundreds of thousands of flights logged by ordinary citizens using flight tracking apps to catalog unspecified airplanes, American and international commercial airplanes, and private planes spraying the skies over their communities every day. However, the groundswell of concern from ordinary citizens made the growing number of states who have passed legislation banning geoengineering and weather modification activities possible. Tennessee passed legislation banning geoengineering and weather modification activities effective July 1st, 2024. The law prohibits the intentional release of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere to affect weather or sunlight intensity, driven partly by concerns over chemtrails and geoengineering. Florida passed a law effective July 1st, 2025, banning geoengineering and weather modification, including cloud seeding, which fines up to $100,000 per violation. The bill, SB 36, was signed by Governor Ron DeSantis and repeals prior regulations allowing weather modification. As early as 2025, at least 30 states have introduced or are considering legislation to prohibit geoengineering, weather modification, or activities associated with chemtrails and geoengineering. These states include Arizona, where legislation passed the state Senate but is not yet law. Kentucky, Senate Bill 62 and House Bill 22 were introduced in 2025 to ban geoengineering with penalties including fines and felony charges. Iowa, House File 191 and Senate File 142 proposed bans on geoengineering and weather modification, with the Senate version including felony penalties. In Louisiana, a bill passed the State House in 2025 requiring the Department of Environmental Quality to record chemtrail sightings, but it awaits Senate approval. In Alabama, a legislative committee discussed a similar bill in 2025. Illinois, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and South Dakota, these states introduced or previewed anti-geoengineering bills in 2024 or 2025, but none have passed. Up to 31 states have proposed such legislation, including Michigan and others not individually named in the provided sources, though specific bill statutes remain unclear. There's historical precedent. Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia, since the 1960s, where laws were enacted to restrict weather modification. That's our historical precedents. On July 5th, 2025, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene sponsored a bill with co-sponsor Tim Burkett. In summary, the bill, quote, prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere for the express purpose of altering weather, temperature, climate, or sunlight intensity. It would be a felony offense, Greene writes. But what the states are noticing is that even though in some states there are laws, there's no way to enforce these laws. So in conclusion, the revelation of geoengineering in America's skies is a wake-up call. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin's admission on July 10, 2025 confirms that weather manipulation is real, raising urgent questions about health risks, environmental damage, and who's pulling the strings, because we still don't know. From sulfur dioxide's impact on lungs to acid rain threatening crops, the stakes are high. Yet the EPA admits uncertainties in understanding geoengineering's full consequences. As the government scrambles to track these activities, we must demand transparency and accountability. Are we cooling the planet or gambling with our future? Stay vigilant. Our health, ecosystems, and food security depend on it. Check airnow.gov to monitor air quality and protect yourself from particulate matter. The truth is out. Geoengineering is happening, and it's time to act. Until next time, friends, I'm Antoinette Lee, your wellness warrior here at the New Normal Big Life podcast. I hope one day to see you on the river, in the backcountry, or in the horse barn living your best life. Tag New Normal Big Life or NNBL blog on X so we can celebrate your good health and big life. If you're a visual learner, you can watch an informative and entertaining version of this video on YouTube coming soon on the New Normal Big Life channel. And I want to thank our newest podcast sponsor or supporter, I guess, Carol. Thank you so much, Carol. We appreciate you. And just know that 1% of your monthly donation to the New Normal Big Life podcast goes to support the American Adventure Sports Club, the nonprofit that I founded and operate with my co-founder, Matt. Together, we are helping youth, adults, seniors from all backgrounds who can't afford to get outside and adventure to be able to adventure at no cost. We provide all gear, training, travel, food, everything that's needed to bring the adventure sports world to people who can't afford it. So share this episode with someone who needs it, comment on our posts, and drop us a message or email, nothing personal or too specific, when you have a health or adventure sports topic you want us to cover, and support others in this community. Since 2012, the Health Ranger store has been answering your calls for a trustworthy, responsive, and affordable source of health-focused products. Built from scratch with its own US-based fulfillment center and dedicated in-house customer support, they've got you covered. From nutritional supplements and superfoods to storable foods and preparedness gear, they offer competitive prices on top-quality, lab-tested items. I'm excited to partner with the Health Ranger store to bring you the purest, most reliable products out there. Ready to shop? Use my affiliate link to get started.